It's the International Soccer Preview. We are Soccerphiles Canada. Welcome to Series 30, looking at the groups and teams of the 2025 CONCACAF Gold Cup. This episode is looking at Group C: Panama, Jamaica, Guatemala, and Guadeloupe. Here we go! And so we move on to the third part of our media cast here, where we look at the teams kind of in comparison to each other. And we begin with pots and rankings and where the teams are in the pot placement.
Yeah, so Panama enters this tournament ranked third among CONCACAF teams, behind Mexico and Canada, but ahead of the United States, who they've beaten a couple times recently.
Right, and those are, by the way, not FIFA rankings, which actually has United States in second, but CONCACAF rankings based on a point system.
That's right. So, Panama third overall. They're the pot one team. Jamaica is the second ranked team in pot two, behind Costa Rica, but ahead of Honduras and Haiti. And then Guatemala is the pot three team, but the strongest team there. And same for Guadeloupe, the pot four team, but the top among the pot four teams.
Yeah, so, I mean, probably Saudi Arabia, a bit of a stronger team there, but they're not rated here, so they were just placed into pot four. But overall, Connor, how would you gauge this group in terms of difficulty level compared to the other groups based on these pots?
You know, it's interesting. We don't have the biggest or the most kind of successful countries here in terms of titles and stuff. But in Panama and Jamaica, they have two teams that have performed quite well recently, and that's reflected by where they are in their pots. And then I think Guatemala and Guadeloupe are among the stronger teams from their pots. So, yeah, it is a tough group, I would say.
I would say so, too. I mean, arguably, I would say in terms of Gold Cup, at least, that Jamaica is stronger than Costa Rica, which is the pot two's top team. But you could easily see Jamaica kind of as the top pot two team as well.
Oh, absolutely. In terms of Gold Cups, they've reached the last four, in 4 of the last 5 editions.
Yeah.
Costa Rica haven't been managing that. So, they seem a bigger threat for sure.
Yeah, so just like you said, even though none of the big pot one teams are in it, I would say this is a very tough group.
It is.
Okay, well, let's see how that plays out in terms of the rankings for the teams.
Yeah, so the FIFA rankings have Panama as 33rd overall, in ELO in 40th. For Jamaica, it's 63rd in FIFA and 67th in ELO. For Guatemala, it's 106th in FIFA and 84th in ELO, so a higher ELO ranking for Guatemala. And then Guadeloupe don't have a FIFA ranking, but are 115th in ELO. So those rankings kind of show a clear 1, 2, 3, 4. But we'll discuss later whether we see it that way as well.
Yeah, and also something to discuss is the discrepancy on Guatemala between FIFA and ELO, FIFA having them quite a bit lower than ELO does. Okay, that may be the starting point of our discussion, but meanwhile, we'll take a look at their head-to-head records, beginning with, you take it away.
Yeah, Panama, Jamaica first. The top 2 ranked teams are actually fairly even overall. Panama has 5 wins, Jamaica 3, and they've tied 5 matches as well from their 13 games.
Yeah, and that kind of plays out fairly evenly over recent times. Their biggest meeting probably was in the 2019 Gold Cup quarterfinal there, which Jamaica won, but also won the 3rd place match in the 2024 25 CONCACAF Nations League. So actually Jamaica winning the biggest games. In between, we saw Panama beating them twice in 2022 World Cup qualifying. So fairly even.
Yeah.
Okay, next we go to Panama and Guadeloupe.
Yeah, these teams have met twice competitively, and it's a win each, actually.
That's right, and that was back in 2009, 2011. So Guadeloupe winning during that strong period that they had between 2009, 2011. But a bit of ancient history, I don't think that relevant to right now. Do you agree?
I do, but it's interesting that both meetings were in the Gold Cup as opposed to some other competition.
Right, that's true. Okay, next we have Jamaica and Guatemala.
Yeah, Jamaica proves a stronger team here. They've won 6, tied 1, and lost 1.
That's right. And then, of course, that meeting in the 2023 Gold Cup quarterfinal, Jamaica winning that one. So actually a bit of a surprisingly strong record, do you think? Strong record for Jamaica there.
Yeah, I think so. I wouldn't have expected to be as dominant. Guatemala, we've seen they're usually third or fourth among the Central American team. So yeah, pretty good.
Yeah, and the Central American region a bit stronger than the Caribbean region there, but Jamaica getting the better of them most of the time. Jamaica versus Guadeloupe is next.
Yeah, the 2 Caribbean nations, and it's Jamaica with a dominant record, 7 wins from their 7 meetings.
Yeah, pretty convincing record. Listeners may be wondering why we haven't done Guatemala versus Panama, but that's because Guatemala actually has the stronger record there.
Yes, they do. They have a lot of meetings between the two of them, but Guatemala's won 9. They've tied 3, and Panama has won 5.
Excuse me. Yeah, so that's a very interesting one because pre-2007, Guatemala had a completely dominant record of 9-2-1. And then since 2007, Panama has a stronger record, 4 wins, 1 tie, and no losses. So they've effectively exchanged positions around 2007.
Very interesting.
Yeah. Last one, Guatemala versus Guadeloupe.
And here it's an even record. In fact, the same record as Guadeloupe had against Panama, which is a win and a loss from 2 Gold Cup meetings.
Yes, and good meetings they were. We've talked about them in the main podcast, in part 2. Both of them recent, that 2021 Gold Cup playoff, amazing shootout. I think I said Guadeloupe won 11-10 on penalties, but it was actually 10-9. And then their group stage meeting in the last Gold Cup, which Guatemala won, but by a 3-2 scoreline. So could be an exciting game here. All right, well, we usually look at odds, not that we are gamblers, but we like to see what the odds makers think. However, as easy as gambling is being made nowadays, I can't find odds to win the group here.
Yeah.
So we'll go back to the FIFA rankings to maybe begin our discussion. And do you have any observations on the rankings, Connor?
I guess my first observation is that Jamaica's relative ranking to Panama seems a bit harsh. There's 30 places between them in both systems, basically, both FIFA and ELO. Jamaica they've both been strong recently, but like we said, Jamaica has gone to the semifinals in 4 of their last 5 tournaments. Panama has done well in that time too and got to some finals, but I wouldn't say the gap is 30. But what do you think?
Yeah, no, I agree with you there. I think it's a lot closer. I think it's quite possible Jamaica could win this group. I do kind of understand the rankings because in recent World Cup competition, Panama has done a lot better than Jamaica. But in Gold Cup competition, I think Jamaica actually has had the edge. So whether you agree with these rankings or not, I think they're pretty close.
Yeah,
go ahead.
It's been kind of interesting to watch two teams kind of doing well recently. I think when Panama made the 2018 World Cup with kind of a veteran team, we both thought that they would kind of fall off, as that golden generation came to be replaced, but they haven't, and they've continued to go on to strength. So they've been impressive in it, managing to maintain and perhaps even build upon that strength was kind of peaked in 2018.
Yeah, I'm really on that note. I'm wondering. I think it's important to talk about whether teams are going to send their best, and we really don't know. We've heard hints of we've heard hints of Canada not sending their best, and even beyond America not sending their best players. I'm currently doing the Player podcast, and it's a mess. I would say most of the players that are definite candidates for reaching the cup are either with a team playing for the club. FIFA Club World Cup, or they're injured, or something like they're going to be missing a lot of players here. I think Panama, perhaps a bit more than Jamaica, will be blinking and seeing the Gold Cup in the dark of those blinks. I think it's possible they may see this as a chance to win the Gold Cup. That's what I was trying to get at with my hopeless metaphor there.
And Jamaica too. I mean, back-to-back runners-up in 2015-17, semifinalists. Like you said, their lower ranking compared to Panama's due to not being as competitive in World Cup play. But for a team that consistently reaches the Final Four of the Gold Cup, maybe they should be more competitive in those World Cup qualifications. The door is more open to them this time because CONCACAF has effectively 6 spots, 3 of which are open to qualification. So they'll be looking to kind of build on that. But again, another semifinal finish would make an argument that they should be in the top, well, we'll say 6 because of that's how many World Cup spots there are, but they should be in the top 6 in the region.
Yeah, the only reason I'm not as sure with Jamaica in thinking that they might have ambitions to win this tournament is because I think they're at a higher risk of maybe some of their top players not showing up. I think Panama will definitely send their best players, but Jamaica, again, these CONCACAF teams have been playing a tournament every summer, basically, and I think some of those top Jamaican players may decide to not come for the tournament. I wouldn't blame them. On the other hand, it's not a slight against them. They have been really good at showing up to games, not just tournaments, but to qualification games. Some of them, like Demarai Gray, even showing up to a lot of the friendlies. But do you think Jamaica's going to send their best here?
I hope so. I mean, Jamaica has a lot of top players playing in England, in the championship level, Premier League level. Like you said, the historical difficulty is getting them all together at the same time in the same team. But they've been doing that more recently. They have a fairly high-profile manager now in Steve McLaren, which, maybe part of that is to, be a further enticement to players to come and participate and fight for their spot. So
yeah,
I don't know. They may have some players, again, who've had a long competitive season in the UK or elsewhere who may kind of prefer a rest. But, they have the players they can draw on. There's a lot of quality there.
Oh yeah, and I do think if they all show up, they may be kind of eyeing the chance to win the tournament. A stronger possibility this time than in most tournaments. But then for Jamaica, it does kind of come down to whether they're going to show up. But they, as I said, were showing up under Hallgrimsson. They've been showing up for qualifiers, and there are 2 World Cup qualifiers just before the tournament, so they're not friendlies. Those players may feel they need to be there for that game against Guatemala, and then perhaps willing to play in the Cup. But this is a great chance for both of those teams, with maybe the top 3 not sending their strongest squads.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that actually kind of addresses what we usually do as our last question, which is how far do you think these teams can go? But maybe we should talk a little bit about the teams below here. Guatemala ranked quite a bit lower in FIFA, only 17 points behind Jamaica in ELO, but a full 43 points behind Jamaica in FIFA. Which one do you agree with?
I agree with the bigger gap in FIFA, partly on the point I mentioned earlier. I think Jamaica's slightly underranked, perhaps. I see there being a bit of a gulf there, probably more of a gulf than I see between Panama and Jamaica. Guatemala have done all right, but they're not a team that's advancing to the deeper stages. They're not getting to final rounds of World Cup qualifying. So I do see them as certainly a step below the other two.
Yeah, certainly not reaching kind of the final stages of the Gold Cup very much, not reaching the final stages of the Nations League like Panama and Jamaica. But we saw in part one, they are a much bigger country. And we saw in part two that they do have a history especially in the Central American region, even if that is quite a bit behind them and they haven't achieved that for quite a while. It is there. I'm always kind of waiting for Guatemala to do a little bit better, something commensurate with their size, their population size. I'm not sure it's going to happen here, though.
Yeah, I mean, we shouldn't count out the fact that they won their group stage round robin at the last Gold Cup ahead of Canada, so they are capable. But I don't see it as I don't think they have the history to demonstrate sustained success like both Panama and Jamaica have done.
Yeah, it's the teams they're up against here. Panama and Jamaica seem to have a lot of motivation and a lot of momentum, whereas Guatemala don't share that. But it certainly wouldn't be a shock to see them challenging for an advancing position.
Yeah, I think they might have to beat one of Jamaica or Panama to get through. So that'll be the aim, and then of course try and take care of business as against Guadeloupe, unless you see Guadeloupe themselves having a shot at advancing.
I wouldn't say a shot of advancing for Guadeloupe, but I think they can certainly play a role in this group. I think it would be a very outside chance of advancing, but they have surprised in cups before. I certainly don't see them as a whipping boy here.
No, I agree with that. I think they could have a say. Any team that they manage to take points off, that could be a bit of a fatal slip, or could drop them a place in the pot order. So I think they'll be competitive enough at the game level to possibly take a point off someone. Of course, Guatemala being the most likely team. But against one of the other teams on their day, I think they can do it.
Yeah, I mean, we have seen them get the better of Guatemala in that Gold Cup qualification a few years ago. That might actually immunize Guatemala a bit to not take them for granted. But I do think Guadeloupe will play an important role here, as you said. Any team that they take points off, that'll be devastating to their campaign in this otherwise competitive battle.
Yeah, I mean, at their last tournament, they took points off Canada, and then they beat Cuba convincingly 4-1.
Yeah.
So they finished with 4 points and were a bit unlucky to not pass the group stage. However, over the past several tournaments, either the group stage or not qualifying at all has been their limit, I suppose.
Yeah, not a team to be trifled with, but nevertheless, they do seem quite a bit weaker than the other teams in this group. Is there anything else you talk about? Or are you ready for me to try to pin you down to give you a ranking here?
I've tried to squirm away, but I suspect you'll have me.
All right. I do wonder if we should talk about one more matter, and that is, I'm going to actually put it on the visual right here, because sometimes the order of games makes a difference. So maybe we'll just take a quick look at the order of games, and that'll give you time to make up excuses to dither on your rankings. We have Panama playing Guadeloupe first, and Guatemala second, Jamaica third. And we could go through it all, but do you see anything significant in the order of matches?
I do see. I mean, the crucial game, I think, is Jamaica versus Panama, and that's the last one. So I think that means both Jamaica and Panama will have to there's no taking it easy. There's no kind of qualifying and taking your foot off the gas. And I think first or second matters. If things kind of go according to plan in other groups, the second place team might have to play a Mexico, a Canada, the United States, a stronger team. Whereas I think the team that finishes first will get a bit of an easier quarterfinal draw. And going in terms of how far can these teams get. I think both are capable of going to the final, but whoever wins the group is going to have an easier path, or should have an easier path in theory, to getting to the semifinals and then the final. So, no, I think it's good that the big game is the last one. I think it'll make this a very competitive group.
Yeah, I think you make a really good point there. I mean, especially in the Gold Cup, finishing first or second is really significant. If you finish first, you're probably facing Mexico, USA, or Canada. And, even their B teams, if they do send a weaker squad, will be challenging enough. So I'm sure they'll be very anxious to win this group. And that would include not dropping points to Guadeloupe along the way, for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, now we are ready to put you to the sword here. And who do you see? I'm just going to go back to the main graphic here. Who do you see as do you agree with the pot order or not?
You know what? I'm going to call no, I don't agree with the pot order. I think Jamaica's pedigree in this tournament. I actually going to say they're going to finish ahead of Panama, perhaps on goal difference if they tie their game against each other. So I'm going to say Jamaica, Panama, Guatemala, Guadeloupe.
How bold! And do you see Guadeloupe getting any points there?
I could actually see them tying Guatemala. I do think Jamaica and Panama have been consistent enough or shown consistency recently that they'll win those two games against the other two. So it just might come down to goal difference. So I see Guatemala and Guadeloupe close, but kind of far from advancing.
All right. Well, for me, it's not really that I disagree with you. I could see Jamaica overcoming Panama, but for me, that comes down to whether their top players show up or not. And I kind of have, I don't have any news or anything, but I kind of have, maybe we'll call it a risk factor, because I do really feel Panama will be sending their best. No doubt. So I'm going to go with the pot order here. Say Panama, Jamaica, Guatemala, Guadeloupe. I think I do see a bit more space for Guatemala to maybe upset and finish second than you seem to be feeling. But I think a lot of that will come down to Guadeloupe, because I really have the feeling they'll take some points, or, take points in this group. But who they take it off is the question. As you say, it would most likely be Guatemala if they do take points. But I think they can be a bit of a disruptive element in this group and perhaps change the order of things. So for me, I wouldn't be surprised by much here. Okay, I would be surprised if Guadeloupe won the group. But otherwise, I wouldn't be surprised if it didn't finish in the pot order. But if I were to predict, I would say the pot order.
Yeah. Well, I think it could be close. I mean, I did say that there's maybe a gap between the top two and the bottom two, and I think there is, but the matches may not play out that way. So this is a definite group to keep an eye on. I think it will be a very interesting one, and we'll see.
Yeah, I think it'll be the most exciting group. I think actually the other groups will be a bit more exciting and interesting if the top teams don't send their best. But without considering that, I would call this the most interesting of the groups.
Yeah, should be competitive.
Great. Well, that was good, and that leads us into the cup itself. I hope our look at the teams here makes the cup more rich and interesting for you. And we will sign off until we meet again in Group B.
All right. I'll see you then.
We would like to thank Future Bass for the wonderful music you hear in this podcast. The title is called Alone.